Okay, let's get started. Thanks for joining today. The session is recorded, so I know there's a few people who let us know that they won't come back, aren't available today. So what we'd like to do is cover up a number of items in the administrator module. So what I've got is a series of slides, and then for each area, we're actually going to jump in and look at the individual piece around what that recruitment process is or how it works. Main areas that we've had a lot of requests from customers through our support. This has been around candidate account administration, recruitment process, but more importantly, linking that to the rules engine. So I'll show you how that comes together. Most people are able to edit their comms templates, but again, we're looking at a couple of different options that are available to you there and talk through that. We'll have a look at the forms admin and the request to hire admin. Certainly, how do you reroute those or change it? And then finally, we'll have a look at the hiring manager feedback tool and how to configure different types of feedback coming from individuals. We'll also have a look at a couple of other smaller admin items that don't get a lot of questions asked, but they are important to let you know that they're there. So around the holiday calendar, we'll touch on that. We'll do a little bit around the reference data. Certainly talk about building a new talent folder process and how that works. It's quite easy to do. Application admin to the candidate side, we'll cover that off. A little bit about interviews and SMSs, just to make sure you're aware of that. And then predominantly, we'll talk about the hiring manager feedback tool. So let's jump into the first area. So in the admin module, you should have access to application admin if you are an admin user. If that is not the case, we will need you to log a ticket, and we can easily add that to your user group for your admins. So this area has been designed to help administer candidate accounts. And so in a moment, I'm going to jump in. I'm actually going to search for a candidate. There are different types of candidates in the system, some that have applications, some that might be registered and just have job alerts. So you're able to toggle that to help find them. Certainly, if you can get their email address, it makes it easiest to find them. And we can hit the search button there. It'll bring up the results of that individual, and we can click the edit icon there. So generally, you see where the pencil is, indicating an edit consistently through the application. From that, it'll load the user account details screen, and in the action menu, we'll have a couple of options. So the first is normally send password to a candidate. Generally, they can then reset their password. If we do have candidates who struggle with that process, we can actually reset the password, which will allow us to type a password into the password field here, and then resend that to them or talk them through over the phone how to complete that. And then ultimately, we can delete a candidate. We have had that come up. It'll give us a warning before we do it. But from a privacy perspective, when somebody contacts you and wants to have that candidate removed from the database, that is the avenue that you can complete that activity. So let's jump out to Springboard and come in here. And on my administration, I'm going to come up to the admin console. And we're going to come to candidate accounts. Now I'm going to search for this individual. Way23, I think it was. Search for this person. That will load the bottom screen here for me. Actually, it won't. If I've got the wrong email with the wrong name, let's just try that search. And we've got that. Click on the pencil. And we've got the action menu available there. So if I wanted to reset this individual's password, when I hit reset, the password field unlocked. I could put in password for the individual and then hit save. And then I can hit resend, and it will send the password to the individual. There will be some passwords that you might see account disabled. Okay, if they've tried to use their password too many times, or we might want to set an expiry date for an individual password, or remove that date where applicable. The last action that you're able to do is the delete candidate. And so when I click on the delete candidate button, it will pop up a warning. Now it will remove this person from all the jobs, from the profiles, from the talent folders, basically remove this candidate from the system. And it may trigger some, depending on where the candidate is sitting in the recruitment process, it may actually trigger some communication out to the candidate. But certainly we don't want the bulk of the users having access to this, but it's more a piece where a candidate is asking to be removed from your database. And this is one way to do it without having to contact the support desk to complete that process. So let's jump back to the PowerPoint and we'll look at the next piece of administration. So the next one I wanted to cover off was creating a new workflow process. So when the sites are built, when you become onboarded as a customer, you'll have one or two or three different recruitment processes. Now, most times that process stays static, but there are different projects or campaigns that clients want to run where they actually want to do a new process. So I normally talk to a client and say, look, select the option on the left-hand side here and say create copy. That will create a copy of that recruitment process that you can then edit and change the name of, and you can start to do your testing on that. Where possible, we would encourage you to obtain an access login to the UAT environment, where clients do testing on changes or new releases, and try and replicate some of this activity in there rather than doing it all in your live system. From that point, I'm going to cover off something that is a rather simple change, and that's adding a new step to the recruitment process. So to do that, we click on the little arrow here. It'll pop up a list of statuses that are available in your site, and you're able to add that in. And we're going to come in here and we're going to build a new decline email folder, and then we're actually going to put some rules on that to show you how that process works. So let's jump back out to the live system. Now this element is actually under the administration menu, not under the admin console. So we go to process designer. So that's the workflow process designer. And we're actually going to call up one that we've got here already called demo. Search for that. Okay, and actually it's called admin. Just checking my notes. There we go. Bring this one up. Admin. So admin training. So by clicking on that, that'll bring us into this page here. And we're going to want to add a step. So when I click on that step, it's going to ask us to give it a step name. Most customers know how to do this. And you ask for a status, okay? And the status codes are a set of codes, and they mainly drive the reporting module from that point. We've got send decline there, and we can make a step mandatory by ticking this box here, which will mean candidates must go into that step before they can move further down the recruitment process. So again, if you've got SLA or reporting around your recruitment team around certain activities, by making it stand mandatory, at least means the candidate needs to touch that recruitment process folder. Now, there are some more advanced options down here around automatically sending bulk prints to hiring managers when interviews are scheduled. There's reminders around pieces of the job process, candidate reminders around them completing an action. We're not going to cover those today. They're not highly used, but if you were doing a project that required a lot of automation, certainly we would be picking that piece up. Okay. Okay. So just stop for a second. I think I've just got some feedback saying that they can't see the screen. Okay, so let's just drop out. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, I'll just wait for a staff member to text me whether we can, I'm going to share the screen again. Whether that screen's coming through and the voice is coming through. Sorry about that. We used to use a different software, and since we've moved to Teams, it's a little not as easy Okay. All right. I'm not sure. Let's just stop for a second. Okay. Can anybody in the chat just confirm if they can hear us? Okay. All right. All right. Yep. Looks like we're working. Apologies for the first part of the presentation. What I will do is I won't put it into PowerPoint mode. I think that might have stuffed us a little bit. So just to recap where we've been, you would have watched me find a candidate, have a look at the actions that are available to that candidate, and then we're able to remove or send the password to the candidates. That was the first piece we've covered. Second piece, now that we've got the voice working again, we're able to come through and we've copied a recruitment process, and we're now just about to do the demo around creating a new step. So let's jump out to the system here. And what I was doing is we'll just come back and we'll come back to where we were. Come back here. And what I wanted to do is add a new step to the recruitment process around decline, automating the decline email. So I'm going to come in here, give it a name. Okay. I'm then going to look for the status code. And we are going to select status code send decline. And we're able to hit save on that piece. Okay. So we'll just hit continue there on that. And what that's done is that's inserted that step into the recruitment process. So if we come back to see that recruitment process, just search for that again. Okay. I'm just going to try and share the screen one more time. Hopefully this has now fixed the video as well. Apologies, in Teams is a bit frustrating for this. So we've got our admin piece and we've now got our new step in the recruitment process. Now, quite often when we went to add that step in, we may not have the right status code available to us. So what we can do is we can come down to the admin console and we can select application admin. And we want to select the application stages. And in this case here, we had send decline. But if I didn't have that status available to me, and not in depending on how your site's been built, you may have a smaller number of statuses available. What I can do is I can say add, and I can give it a 3-digit code. The code is not important, it just needs to be unique. Give it a label. Give it a longer description. And then what order do I want it in? The order is only important on the admin screen. It doesn't impact the recruitment process. So that will allow me to add a new application status to the system. And once that's been created, that is available for me to be using in the workflow. And the same goes for the application stages. Again, these are sub stages that belong to the recruitment process, not in very high use across the client base, but it is certainly something that the system will support. So coming back to the PowerPoint, we won't go into the view mode that was giving us some issues before. What we'd like to now do is talk about adding a new rule to the recruitment process. So how do I automate the sending of the decline emails for a candidate? So on my recruitment process screen here, on the right-hand side, I've got manage rules. And so that is the business process engine that sits behind the recruitment workflows. Now, there are 2 different ways to add rules, and it's important that we understand the 2 differences available. So rules on individual candidate folder. So when I am on one of these folders that is indented here, and I say create rule, you'll see it says on entry. So in other words, when the candidate or the rules engine moves a candidate into the folder, I want to trigger a condition, an action, and I can save and review it. And we can see here that we can do on feedback submitted. So in other words, I did a hiring manager review piece and I received feedback. That can then move the candidates up and down the recruitment process. And then we've got on forms, on assessment results, on send email, and on assessment result coming back. Now, the second option that we come down to is rules on any folder. So if I come up to the all or the current and I say create rule, you notice the on entry is not here and it just says on feedback submitted, on form, on the job ad close, on when you move the job from approved to filled. Okay, it will do an action on every candidate that meets a certain criteria. And there's a couple of other ones that are the same. And so this is an area where it doesn't matter where the candidate is sitting in the recruitment process. If the activity matches the rule will fire and move the candidate forward or subsequently do an action on that individual or on all of the individuals in that process. So let's jump out to Springboard and we'll come back to our recruitment process. So that process come up and we're working in the admin process today. And let's bring that up and we're going to come through. In this case, we're going to say manage rules. Okay, so there are no rules on this folder at the moment. So I'm going to come down to the decline email. And so that folder is highlighted and I'm going to say create rule. And so the first I'm looking for is on entry. So when a candidate comes into the folder, next, I'm then going to say, is it the recruiter who moved the candidate or the rules engine or both? In this case, I want both. Okay, so that's going to be the condition. Now, conditions can also have nearly any other piece. So if you were using the questionnaire, somebody passed or failed, or if they got a certain score, or if they answered a certain question on the application form, we're able to add these conditions in. But at this stage, we're doing something simple around candidate is coming into the decline folder. What do we want to do? And so we come through and say next. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to do two activities here. First thing I'm going to do is send a message. Come through and say select message, bring up my message templates. I think I've got a reject message in here. Okay, so that will come through for me. So that'll pull that from the library for us. And then it's got a number of other different options that are available to us. So the first action is going to be sending the message. The second action I want to do is I want to then change the status of the candidate. And I'm going to change the status of the candidate to reject. So I can take any status from that recruitment workflow. In this case, I'm going to change them to reject, which will put them in the unsuccessful folder. And then it was on send decline email. Okay, so that comes through and we hit next. And what we want to do is give the rule a name. So we give it a name. We can put a description in there that might be a little bit more, and we hit create rule. Okay, so now we've got that rule and we can see stage. It's the client email, it's the folder name, here's the name, and what do we want to do? If we wanted to edit or review that, we click on the edit here and it will just take us back through the wizard so we can actually confirm what is happening there. So once I've completed that rule, any candidate that comes into this folder will automatically be sent the decline email and then automatically move to unsuccessful. Now, some customers also might come to the top here and they're going to say create rule and they're going to say create rule and we're going to say on send email next. And what do we want to do? apply to any action. So on that. And what is the email template? So in this case, it's going to be the eject email. That in here. Okay. And next. What do we want to do? We want to change the status and we want to put it in the reject folder. Next, and review and save. And so what that means is anytime a candidate is any one of these folders and someone says right click send message to candidate, if they choose the reject email, the email will be sent and the candidate will move to unsuccessful. So there's always a couple of ways that you can automate an activity. This is a good example of if it's a hiring manager-led process, we probably have a folder like this. They drop them in the folder, we automatically send the right email. If it's a recruiter-led process, we mightn't have this folder here, but we might have a rule saying, please send this once the please send this, move this candidate once the email's been sent. Okay. All right. So there's quite a lot to cover there. Certainly, that should just give you a bit of an introduction as to the different options around the rules engine. Once we've completed that piece, what we want to make sure is that the template is synced back to everybody. So if I come back and look for that one again, okay, come through, pick that up, and then we hit the update jobs. What that will do is any job that has this workflow on it will automatically have these rules changed to it. If we don't hit the update job button, it'll be only new jobs created have that workflow rule associated with it. Okay, so let's now move back out to PowerPoint and we'll move down, and I wanted to talk about application communication templates. So certainly something most people have access to use in the system. Lots of people update their templates. What we're going to focus on today is just a couple of little things that are settings that are there that you might not know about. So we always want to make sure we tick this box here, record log entry. It will tick it by default, so you don't want to be changing it. What that means is it'll record on the candidate's history record that the email was sent and all the date and time and pieces around it. We want to make sure our emails are all HTML. That means we're able to do the rich emails with images and bullet points and formatting rather than text. And then we've got this select signature piece, and I'll show you how to put a signature into your email in a moment. Once we've actually configured the message details, then the screen here, the tags, this will give you all the tags that are in your site that are available for inserting into the email. And so you just get the cursor in the right spot, you select the tag and it will automatically insert it. Don't remove the little triangle and square bracket around the tag. Otherwise, the system won't be able to insert the right information. If you're using imagery, the little image button here will allow you to put the image in. That image either needs to be on our web server or your web server for it to be used in the email. The signature tag down here will insert the signature. If we want to remove a message, so we want to make it inactive, the red button won't delete the message, it'll just move it to the inactive section. And then if we make a change to the decline email, for example, and we hit the save and sync with rules, it'll make sure that any rule that is using that email is also having their email template updated as well from that perspective. So let's swap over to the admin module. We'll come through and have a look at app comms. So anything we're doing here for app comms is the same for job comms, but most of the communication templates that you use as users are in this section. Inactive messages, those are ones that we said delete, will sit in here. We're going to work in the active messages today, and we are looking at the candidate received email. Okay, so at the top of the screen here, this is where we just can change the group that it's in, change the logging, the HTML. Most of this you don't need to change. The signature, you can select the signature, and so this is a much closer signature to what you would see in Outlook rather than a text-based signature. And so you can actually set these up, and I'll show you where to set them up in a moment. to have them come through. They will support imagery as well to come through the system. Nearly every email template can be written also as an SMS. And so when you're sending communications, you can send them as email and SMS. Generally, the SMS area will be blank. Coming down to the little button here, the edit button, this is where you can change the default from address. So there are going to be some emails that come from the hiring manager. There'll be some emails that might want to come from the recruitment inbox. There might be some that come from the recruiter. So you're able to control that piece of information there. If we want to change the image, click on the image, click on the button here, and you can see that image needs to be on the internet somewhere, and we can control the width and height of that image that gets inserted into the email as well. But I can also do that by just dragging the image and making it smaller. Okay, each of the tags, if I position my cursor here and I selected a tag, date applied, it'll insert that tag for me individually into that message. Okay, so these message templates are basically HTML web pages, which allows you to actually do a lot of formatting associated with that. In the bottom, I said about remove, that'll archive the message, and then the save and sync to rules will push that message into the rules engine to make sure the rules engine is using the most up-to-date messaging. Okay, so most times I would advise a customer, if they want to do a new message, to actually come in here and just copy this is entirety and create the new message and paste that text in, and that'll make sure you're using the consistent template that's been provided to you as part of your implementation or as part of one of the support text disk changes. Right, so let's come back to the menu, and we're going to talk about a couple of other areas of high administration. So another area here that we're getting lots of admin is around the request to hire. So as an admin, you'll quite often get questions around where's the approval process up to. Now, hiring managers should be able to check that themselves based on the email they get when they raise the request to hire. But essentially, we can come into the admin module and do this. And you can do that by clicking, once you've done the search, by clicking on the icon here, and it will pop up the approval process. And then also, if you want to change the approval path, you can click on the pending. It'll pop up a window and we'll see that. So let's have a look at both the admin of the request to hire and the potential admin of the forms module as well. So we'll come back out here and we'll come up to the request to hire. And just going to push this back to 2020. I think that'll find one for me. Wait for that to come up. And so if we click on that link, we can see the request to hire, and we can also see where it is up to in the approval process. So if Ian had approved that, we'd see the word approved here. If approver 2 was waiting, it'd see sent. If we want to retract it, in other words, cancel it, we can click the red button and it will cancel the request to hire. Most of the time, the question is probably around A, who's sitting with the approval, or can we change the approval path? So you can click on that. And if you click on the name, you can actually change the email address. And then as soon as you click out of the field, it'll save that address and you just hit resubmit, and it will resend that approval to them, because sometimes the approvals do get deleted in hiring managers' inboxes, or they can't find them for some reason. Okay. The second piece that we'll talk about is the forms management. And we'll just have a look at forms that have been raised. So these are the forms that we're using most often for offer approval in the recruitment process, or their forms for obtaining referee details from a candidate. We'll give that a chance to run. This library is quite large on this site, so it'll take a couple of seconds for it to respond. And then this will give us a listing of all of the forms that have been raised in the last 4 days that we then are going to be able to administer. So there's lots of combinations. If you're looking for a form on a particular job, or you have the candidate's details, you can be putting those in. So if I came through here, I can see this is a multi-recipient. So the first approver has completed the action, and now we're waiting on the second approver. So if I wanted to push that through, I can come through here and say republish and choose the email template from approval, and essentially hit the republish button, and it will resend that request to that manager or that candidate immediately to complete it. We can change the completion date because often the completion date has expired. So we're able to come through and actually change the completion date of that and republish that to them. So that is the main purpose of that. We can also come through and redelegate a form to somebody else. So I can change, redelegate from the current recipient to, and I can put in a new email address in here or pick one from the list. And again, who do I want to delegate it to? What is the email template? And I can redelegate a form. So most of those are really forms that are being used probably in the offer approval space for candidates, for hiring managers to approve offers. And then also forms that are published into the onboarding is most of what we would be administering in this space here. Okay, coming back to the template, we'll now move down and we'll talk about another area that not a lot of clients configure, and it's actually a really easy piece of the software to configure. And so the talent folder processes, these two processes that we're looking at the screen here are designed for two different functionalities, but they're essentially the same module. So on the left-hand side here, I've got what might be a typical sourcing process. And you can see if you've got people in your team that are out doing market mapping or searching for candidates, they can load those candidates through the bulk candidate loader, and they might sit in the top folder here. And essentially, we're just dragging the candidates through this process. Ultimately, they've either been successfully nurtured or they're going to the recruitment process, or they're unresponsive or unsubscribe. On the right-hand side is an example of a talent folder where we're using it for process distribution. So in this case, I've got a team that are responsible for generating contracts. So anytime a candidate goes into the recruitment process where it says prepare offer, a candidate gets copied to the talent folder, goes on the ready here. They're able to process that candidate response and generate the letter of offer and then move them down to complete. So basically they're using it to distribute their work amongst the team and taking that away from the recruiter. What we're going to focus on is how do I actually make those changes to build processes like this. So we're going to have a look at in the admin console, the talent folder process, and then the difference between these two steps. Let's jump back out to Springboard and we'll come into the admin module and we'll be on talent folder processes. And what we can see here is a number of different ones. So if I'm just looking for one here, and we'll just jump on one of these. Okay, and so we've got current. So those are the folders that were indented. Successful, those are the folders that are at the bottom. And then unsuccessful, those were the people where we said, the people wanted to unsubscribe or they weren't interested in working with us. So how do we actually get items into these steps? Quite often the first thing we need to do is come over to the step library. And we want to have a look at what are the steps that are available to us in the library. So if I came down and I couldn't see a step that matched the type of process, you can see here in the sourcing one, I had initiated email, initiated phone, initiated social. I come down here and say add step, call the step training demo, and hit save on that. Now that's essentially put it into the library for me. Then if I come then over to my process configuration, and I can choose my retail pipeline, and I come through and edit that. And then what I can do is I can say in the current folder, I want to add a step, and the step name, this is the list of names. So I think somewhere in here, I'll have the training item. Okay, training demo. What group do I want it in? I want it in the current, which means the indented folders. And then I'm able to actually configure some email automations around this. Again, you're probably only using this if you were doing a sourcing piece around it, or you wanted to do reminders to recruiters or external people about candidates moving in to the process. And then what I do is I hit save. That will have added that in. And then what I can do is I can actually move that to the right step in the process. So I'm going to continue to move the training down towards the bottom. Okay, so it's down the bottom now, and I hit save. And essentially what I've now done is I've updated that process. I can also then say any talent folders that have that process attached, please update that as well. So I'm going to hit yes, and everybody now has that updated step in the process. So where do I attach these to the talent folders? So if I come through to my talent folder module, so talent folder, create folder, I give it a name. And then I'm going to choose the process. And so here I'm able to go through the list and I can choose the process that I want to use. In this case, I'm going to use the direct sourcing. Normally, talent folders have classifications on them. They're really there. It's a client configurable piece. They're there to help you classify your folders by job function or location, and it is reference data that you can update and control yourself from that point of view. I'll see if I can find that reference data in a moment while we're working. And so if I hit create on that, it'll now create that folder for me with that process attached. And then I can come through and I can view that folder. If you change the owner here to someone in the recruitment team or sourcing team, that would automatically come out on their homepage dashboard for them as the owner of that talent folder. Okay, so a fairly easy piece to configure. And then if I think I've would have it here, we could certainly drill down on that. And what you'll see is that is essentially where the steps are coming through on the right, on the left-hand side here. So that's how you can control those. The one that's there for all customers is probably fairly basic, but certainly it's very easy, probably much a little bit easier than building a new recruitment process is building the talent folders. Okay, so let's come back to the presentation, and we're going to just talk about a couple of other little pieces in here. So there's quite a lot of pieces on the admin screen. Most of you should have access to them. If you don't and you want to use them, please log a support desk ticket and we can add that to your admin user account to make these changes. So let's jump in and have a look at a few of these. So we'll come down here, come back to admin console. And so we've talked about candidate accounts. We haven't covered email address override. I'm not going to cover that today. It is an area where you're able to have emails sent from a particular email address, but make the system override it to a different, it might be override it to the careers inbox. So there's different ways that you can do that. But the first piece I wanted to cover was holiday. And so this here is a calendar where you can add different holidays. What they essentially are days when the rules engine will not send a communication to the candidate. That's essentially what those pieces are for. I think it also may stop you booking an interview on a holiday, but essentially that's what that calendar is for. Coming back to the console, and we've got manage reference data. So need to be careful in here. You can do a lot of damage to your solution if you edit or remove reference data that's used for some of the core job searching or candidate portals. I'm going to come over here to manage reference data list. Just going to see if I can find that classification one, whether that was in here or not. Here it is. So there's a classification one in here, and what I'm able to do is actually bring that up. So these are all the different classifications I've got. And if I wanted to add a new item to that, I can add it, and then I can change the order of that. And so that'll be the order that it's displayed in the system. I can edit them coming through, and I could change that. I actually want to move that to position number 1 and hit save, and that'll add that in. And then there's an add item button. If I hit the add item button, it will add me a new reference data category down the bottom here. And then essentially I can come through and edit that and set up the right field. So this one's going to be in Z, and it'll be in position 9, and essentially save that. And now I've updated that. So quite often, if you don't know the category, you can come over here and type in the word that is in your reference data, and that should find you the category that you're looking for. I'm just not sure if I've got one that will work. Just reset the search. See if New South Wales is here, and hit search, and we can see we must have a list for states, and New South Wales is in that list, and so we can come through and click on that, and it would allow us to edit that option, or we can actually drill down on it and edit that classification on and the data elements that are there. So certainly it is for self-service, probably best used for fields that aren't in the job app add search module or some of the request to hire pieces. In all ways, I would say if you're going to make changes to your reference data, change it in UAT first, have a look at it, make sure it's come through correctly before you make this change in the live system. Okay, back to the admin console and a couple of other things. So interview communication, for those using the interview module, this is a bit of a one-stop shop for you so that you can actually set up what the defaults are for messages being sent to candidates or the panel. And so as you build the and use the interview module, you don't have to edit this tab. The tab that is there allows you to customize it, but essentially this will be the default setup. So you can see these emails are being sent, these communications being sent as email. If a candidate or books somebody, what I'd want to do is actually send a calendar invitation to the panel and the candidate on that, and rather than an email, and that'll put a VCal appointment in my diary for that actual activity. Okay, coming back through here, SMS accounts. So a lot of customers are using the SMS module. You need to come through and the instructions here. We use Burst SMS as our provider. There's a video on it as well. You basically are buying, setting up a license key with Burst SMS, and then you basically buy the credits, and you're able to load those credits through the piece here. So whenever you're sending an SMS in the system, you can choose what account you're sending it from, and it'll actually tell you if it'll fail if you don't have enough credits in your message log that you've got there. Okay. All right, so we're almost through most of these. The candidate profile, for those that use the candidate profile, you're able to come through here and you can edit fields, or you can add fields that are in the back end, not just for the front end. So that's an option for you. Those of you that are doing letter of offers, the RTF admin will essentially allow you to control that piece around uploading your letters, and then the Seek account admin is related to your Seek template ID. So there's a few customers that I don't have Seek correctly configured in this test environment, but quite often you might want to change your account code or your logo that's attached. You can actually now do that rather than coming through the support desk. Probably best to work with us the first time you make that change, and we can go from there. Okay, so two more things we're going to cover off. One was about the signatures. So as you saw me use the signatures earlier. Today, I think I didn't cover add new signature, where I can give that signature a name and pull that through. And then also there's an SMS signature that comes with that. So I may have missed that out when we went through that. The final piece I'd like to cover off is around the hiring manager feedback. So most customers have the hiring manager feedback, and what they have by default is the yes, no, maybe, and they have a comments box that sits somewhere in here where the hiring manager can put a comment in. But there's actually a lot of configuration that you can do with this. this is an example where we've turned off the comments box and we've got structured feedback coming from the hiring manager back to the recruitment team. So to do that, we've built quite a comprehensive admin module, and we go to the admin console and we go to hiring manager feedback. So there's a few settings here on the left first. So do I want to disable the unstructured feedback? In other words, do I want to turn the comments box off? So that's a customer by customer decision. Do I need feedback in every candidate? We normally tick the box for yes. Do we want the screening comments coming through? So there's a section at the top of the screen where you can add screening comments. Those will come through to the hiring manager or the panel, so you can provide advice around who you think the preferred candidates might be. More importantly here around this, notify recruiter on individual submission of feedback. So if you are sending the feedback to more than one hiring manager, the system will actually provide you an alert as the recruiter when the feedback comes back from the first hiring manager, and then will provide another alert when everybody's completed their feedback. So that's certainly something that's important if you are sending the candidate slate to a number of different people. On the right-hand side here, if you're using any of these assessments, if you tick the box, the assessment will be visible in the feedback. So if we jump back here, the assessment, well, there'll be another tab here, the Fit to Work or Sonru or Modern Hire, where you can actually view the video, or the hiring manager can view the video. So that's an option that's certainly available to you as well. Okay, so as we move down, we can hide the resume and hide the application. So there are some customers who are doing a little bit of blind recruitment on certain roles, and we've been able to turn off the resume tab or the application tab and provide different feedback to them. And now down the bottom here is the section where we've actually built the structured feedback. Okay, so if I come through here and select something like this, okay, so I can see it's number 2 in the list. It's a candidate type, okay. It's a drop down, and then I'm actually able to pull from the reference data. So if I went to our reference data module and typed in rating, I'd see a list of fields that were available for me there. And actually, do I want to default the value? And then there's some pieces around whether it's a mandatory field to fill out and whether it's visible around the decision process. So what we're able to do is, with this structured feedback and also with the yes, no, maybe that appears at the top of the screen here, we can actually build these into the rules engine. So as it comes back from the hiring manager, if they say yes, we can make the candidates move forward in the recruitment process. If they say no, we can move the candidates to the decline area of the recruitment process. So certainly this tool, if you start to use the structured feedback here and you link it to the rules engine, will allow you to automate the movement of candidates through the recruitment process. So not a difficult item again to configure. We would normally advise you link it to the reference data where required, so that'll make it a little bit easier for you to use. In here we had a rating. Do I need a second interview? Yes or no? There's a large number that were appearing on the screen there. I would encourage use of this in the UAT environment first before you roll it out to the hiring managers. Obviously, there's a bit of change management involved in just the education of people around what we are looking for them to do with this area of the system. Okay, so we've got through everything that I wanted to cover. Apologies for anybody who, for those where we had some screen interruption or couldn't hear. We're still learning how to use Teams for these webinars and also looking at some alternative software so we can get it right. We have recorded this, so I'll check the recording, and hopefully the recording has come out, and we'll be able to share that with you as well. But we'll just see if there are any questions. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, whether there's any questions in the chat from anybody. Okay, somebody asked about, like I had one question about attachments, but I'm not sure where that question came from, but I can see who's asked it, so we'll do a follow-up on that. And most of the other questions were all my problems around screen sharing and voice, which I apologize for at the beginning of the process. Okay, all right, so we'll park that there. Thanks for your time today, and we will get the recording out, and we'll also do some follow-up around what else we can cover in the admin module going forward. Thank you, everyone. Bye.